Welcome back to the ZnZerna Music Hour. Guess what? I just brought you right here live to my room with no intro. I'm gonna run the intro right now. All right, we're back. This is P.T. Burnham. This is the ZnZerna Music Hour. I'm P.T. Burnham. Gotta say thank you to Cold Rhymes. Very excited about the work that I'm doing with Dan Keach. Been rhyming to some of his beats. It's been a cool week. Gotta give thanks to Erica P. for always doing the thing for Cold Rhymes Records. And my man Aaron Brookshire, who me and him are putting out a record in August called Nothing Beats a Try, and I'm very excited about it. I'm not probably going to share a lot of music from that tonight, but probably next week there will be a little bit of an extravaganza. So, I think I'm probably going to start this thing out. Well, let's get into what we're going to be getting into, which is, first of all, a little bit of synthesis talk with the SH1. This synthesizer, let's see if we can get the lights up a little bit. This synthesizer was loaned to me by my girlfriend, Ariel Bryant, who's really awesome. And it is a classic analog synth. Actually, let's see. I wonder if we can maybe get a little bit closer in on it. And better lighting, maybe. So, gonna move this around real quick and bring it back to this. Boy, I do wish I had a little better lighting. Let me see if I can do something about this. All right, so that's a little better. So this is the Roland SH2. What up, footbags? How's it going, man? I'm really excited to show off the synthesizer and maybe talk about a few things. Let's see. Yeah, sometimes I lose a little bit of track. Let's see. Try to get this in position. Okay. So. All right, so that's the Roland SH2. And the Roland SH2 is a pretty special synth. It was one of the early analog synths and part of a weird and confusing series that Roland is still actually releasing, but whose numbers don't make any sense. Like the SH2, the SH101, it's like skips right to like the 26 or something. Just kind of all over the place with the numbers. This model, the SH2, is particularly a rare model. The 101 was a more popular model, but it had some things that the SH2 didn't, like I think MIDI was one of them. Yeah, this keyboard here, it doesn't have a MIDI out or in at all. It works strictly by CV, control voltage, which is the same thing that runs modular synths, the way they talk to each other. Obviously, MIDI is a much more versatile and streamlined and universal music language, but early in the game, control voltage was the way that they talked to each other, the way that instruments talked to each other. And basically there was a standard, usually it was 1 volt per octave. So it was sending simple voltage, just a particular voltage would say to another instrument, hey, play this note. And assuming they were both tuned in together, that's another thing about these old analog synths. Sometimes the oscillators, the analog oscillators, can take some time to tune up, and they can drift a little bit while you're playing or over time. With the SH2, this wasn't really a problem. It's actually renowned for its like sort of rock solid tuning. So we've got it all tuned up, and we've got the pulsar here to accompany it. Let's see. I am going to do something real quick. We're gonna take this one, and nope, we're gonna duplicate it. Briefcase too. And we're gonna unzoom this one. I should have done all this beforehand, but somehow time got away from me and I was just jamming and hanging out. So that sometimes does happen. So here's the unzoomed version and the zoomed version. We've got the pulsar here that's going to do some accompanying drums. And this bass. So we got sorry for that blowout hat. All right, that should be good. How's the audio coming in there? Hopefully everything's good for y'all. Let me know in the chat if anything kind of isn't sounding so great. Okay, so we've got these things going. So, but before we jump into any song making, I'm gonna just talk about the SH1 and synthesis in general. So, let's go over to the synth. Haha, okay. I'm gonna yell a little bit. I think I gotta talk pretty loud into the mic, but that's okay. I think we got this. If you can't hear me, let me know in the chat, but otherwise I think we got this. Okay, so what we have here is a pretty basic analog synthesizer. The layout is quite simple. We have, I'm going to start not over here at this part with the blinking light, but we're going to start where sound making starts, which is at the VCO, the voltage controlled oscillator. That's a voltage controlled oscillator like I was talking about with control voltage earlier. It's actually using voltage inside of itself as well. That's how it communicates with itself, what note to play. So when you hit a note, it plays a note. That is the oscillator, VCO1. We pretty much got the filter completely open. We've got okay, so an oscillator usually goes through a filter, which is, in this case, this voltage controlled filter here. It's got a cutoff frequency, at which point the frequency that is passed through the filter is lowered. So here is almost no filter at all, actually no filter at all. And as we lower this slider, we hear the sound die out. But it's not just getting lower in volume. That would sound like this. And apologize for these scratchy pots, I didn't know about them. We can clean those with a little deoxit. But not now. So, filters are used to filter the amount of frequency or the range of frequency that is coming from the oscillator. So VCO1 right now is making a sine wave, and you can filter it. And we also have a thing called resonance. Resonance, what it does is it takes the frequency at which you put the cutoff. If you can imagine that being like a little gate. At this point that the gate is closed, where the gate is, it boosts that frequency way up. So listen as I sweep this filter. What you're hearing there is a filter's resonance. blend those signals, the resonance and the original filter. So you hear how when it closes, it's got this sort of meow meow effect. That's resonance. We'll turn our resonance all the way down. You don't get that meow meow. It simply cuts off the frequencies. And if you turn the resonance all the way up, ooh, way crazy. So that's just the resonance. Barely hear the original note at all. So, something to note is that this type of filter, this filter in the Roland, is of a type where the more resonance you have in the mix, the less of the original signal you'll have in the mix. So, not all filters work that way. The Moog filter classically had less of a dying off of the original sound when the filter was when the resonance was active. So it's different for different filters. And most of the time when you have a filter, you can also modulate that filter automatically. And modulation is exactly what it sounds like. It's just a shifting of things. And there's a number of ways to shift those things. We can shift it with, for instance, the keyboard itself. Where we play on the keyboard can affect what frequency the filter is at. So if we turn that up to 10, the low notes are much more low-pass filtered than these high notes, which, as you can imagine, is an advantage. It also makes it so you can play the resonance. So it's like almost having another oscillator. You're having another sound that you can control by the voltage being sent out by the keyboard. So we don't want that right now. We're going to take that back down to 0. Okay, so we can modulate our filter with the keyboard. We can also modulate our filter with the modulator, which I'll bring you over here to the modulator, which this is where our blinking light is here. And you can see this blinking light indicates the rate at which this low frequency oscillator is running. Now, a low frequency oscillator is just like a high frequency oscillator, but lower. And you can hear, generally speaking, when someone says low frequency oscillator, what they mean is an oscillator with a frequency that is so low that you can't hear it. Now, what good is an oscillator that you can't hear? Well, we use voltage not only to generate sound in the oscillators, but to modulate sound, to make things go up and down in a pattern, to increase or decrease a filter, for instance. So you can see this blinking red light, yeah? And how it, right now it's blinking so fast you can barely see it blinking at all. And then we bring it all the way down and it's blinking pretty slow. So keep your eye on that blinking light. These older synths, new synths, we got lights everywhere, all sorts of LEDs to indicate what's happening. This has exactly 2 LEDs. One is the power LED, and the other one is this rate LED here. So we can control the rate, and we also have a shape control, which a square wave versus a sine wave. So a square wave versus a sine wave. A sine wave goes like up and down in a smooth fashion, gradually bringing up the data, gradually bringing up the voltage rather, and bringing it back down. A square wave, on the other hand, is at negative all the voltage, and then quickly positive all the voltage, and then negative all the voltage, and then positive all the voltage. So it just shifts between 2 states, whereas the sine wave has a continuous flow of many, many, many states. So we also have a sample and hold, which behaves strangely, basically. It's like a random. So instead of going smoothly up from 0 volts to 5 volts and back down to 0 volts to 5 volts, or like the square wave, 5 volts, 0 volts, 5 volts, 0 volts, 5 volts, 0 volts, what you get is 4.3 volts, 6.5 volts, 3.2 volts, 8.6 volts. You actually don't go into those ranges like 8.6. It's just between 0 and 5, but it's random with the points at which it hits. And each time it blinks the light, it's changing that value. So to keep things simple, we're going to keep it on a sine wave for now. Also, I'll take right now to show you the this should not be up, right? Okay, yeah. To show you the VCO on this machine has multiple ranges that you can select. Usually these older keyboards, and some of the newer ones too, will have it marked out by like 32, 16, 8, 4, and 2. 2 is high, way up high. 4 is a little lower, as you can imagine. And it keeps going down like that. All the way to this. And the SH2 is known for its bass. Its bass capabilities are quite nice. If you can hear that, it's very subby. But I'm also going to show you right now a sine wave for a sound oscillator is a very smooth sound. But we have other sound options that are a little more harsh due to the relationship between the fundamental and the harmonics that is created by these different shaped waveforms. So a triangle wave, or a saw wave actually, I think this is a saw wave, much more level. It's almost got a trumpet kind of sound. And it's just sharper. You know, you see the sharp waveform and it's a sharper sound. It's pretty simple. Then we've also got a square wave, which sounds big and thick. It's one of my favorite waves. I love the square waves. Square waves make for great bass. In my opinion, they make for almost great everything. But I'm definitely falling in love more with the sine and the triangle as well. You can hear how in a sine wave, this note on a sine wave sounds like this. It's got a nice, low, smooth, buttery. Hell yeah. I want to know more about pizza fish. Is this something we have evolved on the channel as of late, my man? Because pizza fish might be right up our alley. Mm-hmm. We like pizza and fish over here at the ZnZerna Music Hour. But okay, so anyways, here is what we got as a sine wave, a smooth and buttery low end. The square wave is harsher, but you notice it's got a lot more high-end content. A lot more buzzy high-end, which you can then filter out with the cutoff. So you can still make it sine wavy. And the reason why a filtered square wave sounds a lot like a sine wave is might be beyond my pay grade right now, but yeah, it's basically it would be too hard and too lengthy for me to explain it. But I'll try to come back next week with a full, succinct explanation for why a filtered square wave or even triangle wave, they almost don't even sound different. they don't sound different from the side. Just a little bit lower in volume, basically. But when you let out the square wave to its full potential, it sounds big and thick. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is the final choice of waveform here on the VCO, which is a pulse width modulation, which just means this. If you think about the waveform as a single pulse, 0 volts to 5 volts, that's a single pulse, right? So a square wave is an even amount of 5 volts, no volts, 5 volts, no volts. But a pulse width mod varies the ratio of no volts to 5 volts. So you might have 5 volts, no volts, 5 volts, no volts. It shrinks that ratio, so it ends up sounding sharper. Now, I will show you the effect of varying the width of the pulse here. You can hear that. Yeah, you definitely hear that. So that is a very, very effective way to change the timbre of the sound. Which is one of the reasons I love square waves, because what I really love is pulse width mod, because you can have a square wave, or you can have what's basically a very quick, like, not square, but like a rectangle shaped wave. Very quick onset and offset. Makes it sound very sharp. A lot like the triangle wave sounds sharp, because it's got that initial Now, what I want to show you too is check this out. The red blinking light here is blinking at a speed. You can see it. And what I'm going to do is make it so that this modulator, the LFO that we've got running here, is going to modulate the pulse width of the waveform. So that sounds like this. various ways that the modulator, which is a low frequency oscillator, can vary the sound that we're hearing. So what we do is we run the oscillator through the filter through an envelope. Now this is called a voltage controlled envelope. Analog synths all use a lot of voltage. Voltage is what's driving the sound, voltage is what's modulating the sound. And in modular synthesis, we take this to our advantage by using any signal to modulate any other signal. And it's a really free way of creating sounds. Now, a voltage-controlled attenuator, which is what we've got here, is an oscillator is always running. It's always running. And what the attenuator does is it plays with the volume of it. Right now even, the oscillator is running. When I push this key, it just lets that running oscillator through. It lets it through, and then it stops letting it through. And the reason it stops letting it through so quickly is because I have what's called the release down all the way at 0. So it gives it very quick and then nothing more. Just a quick bit. But if I push the release up to 5, you'll hear it release sound. Sounds like a more natural sound. And if I put it all the way up to 10, you'll just hear it drone on and on. So that's release. I'm working backwards here, but the entire acronym is ADSR, and that stands for attack, decay, sustain, and release. Attack is the rate at which the sound reaches full volume. So right now, I've got it set at 0, so it's instantly fully open when I hit the key. Bam, there's the full sound, right when I hit the key. If I put attack up to 5, we will hear a gradually increasing sound in terms of volume as the voltage-controlled attenuator, which basically means a volume knob, is gradually turned up. You hear that swoops in. It's subtle, but it swoops in as opposed to being full on like this. Now, if we put it all the way up to 10, we get a very gradual rise. Great for strings. That's attack and release. Decay and sustain are as follows. Decay is the time it takes from the sound once it reaches full volume to then decay down to the sustained volume. The sustained volume can be different than the attack volume, meaning the rate at which it comes up to its full volume, its hit, can then drop off and hold at another volume. You might wonder why you would need this, but it's really quite obvious when you think of something like a trumpet sound, which has an initial hard hit as the note is created by the instrument, but then dies down to a lower volume for that sustained pitch. So decay and sustain are related to each other because it's how long it takes to come down to that sustained level. Now, as you can imagine, if we put our sustain at 0, our release doesn't matter because our sustain is already at 0, and that sounds like this. Wait. I forgot. It's different with the SH2. If the sustain is already down on the SH2, sustain doesn't matter, and we just get the decay. But oftentimes it will just ignore the decay if you've got the sustain all the way down. Pardon, it will ignore the release when sustain is all the way down. Decay, you can hear how it instantly drops down. If we there, it's easy to hear. Hear how the volume on that doesn't drop? And when it's down, it does drop. It goes wow. And here it just goes. It's subtle. But these are the subtle shaping tools that you need to either model a sound you've heard or thought of, or create entirely new types of sounds. Up till now, I have not really been doing this keyboard justice entirely, because this single oscillator, as nice as it sounds, still sounds pretty thin. Even that, and that's pretty thick, but it's still kind of thin in terms of how we, especially in the modern day, hear sounds. Now we can thicken it up by using pulse rate mod. And that gives it a distorted type of sound, which we might not want. It's certainly thick, but it's also quite distorted. Let's bring it to the saw wave. Let's bring it to the square wave. And bring it up an octave. Yeah, bring it up an octave. So, that's a relatively, it's not entirely thin, but it's got a lot more potential when we start throwing in two things. Here on the audio mixer we have two additional oscillators that we can bring in. One is oscillator 2, so-called because it's the second oscillator. You'll be able to hear it. As I bring it in, it'll sound like a thickening of the sound. Right in there with you. If oscillator 1 is your single singer, then oscillator 2 becomes a fifth up harmonic, which gives it a lot more body. And we're getting closer to that classic 80s sound that this synthesizer is known for. Actually, if you're listening close, you may hear some timbres and tones that sound like some of the stuff off of the Stranger Things soundtrack, and that's because they used one of these and a couple of different variants, like the 101, on a lot of that material. It's a very authentic 80s sound. Especially, this is how we thickened things back in the 80s. Now we've got a lot of different kinds of harmonic distortion that can very subtly thicken things, not like this pulse width mod that is quite gritty sounding. You can actually get much thicker with one oscillator using some distortion techniques, but that wasn't really around back then. And so the main way that they thickened the sound was to use additional oscillators, and it's still one of the best ways. So in addition to a second oscillator, which can be detuned in relationship to your main oscillator, there is another oscillator which we can bring in which cannot be detuned, but is an octave below oscillator 1. Basics of our sound making. I like a square wave, I like a pulse width mod, so that's what I'm going to do. But I'm not going to vary it with the LFO. I'm just going to fine there. You know, I think this show might just end up being me explaining the SH2, because we're at what? 36 minutes already. Miami Nice. Yes, definitely got some Miami Vice. I wish I knew the tune. But, okay, so in addition to those, we've got a portamento, which basically will glide the notes up from one another rather than just. Now if we turn the portamento up, hear how it glides up in pitch? It'd be very nice. Crank that baby all the way to 10. So that is portamento. We also have a tone bender, which it actually has a really nice feature where it's not just a tone bender, it can also be a filter bender as well. And we can decide how much we want to do each one, how much we want to bend each thing, the oscillator or the filter, with these sliders. So this is what it sounds like when the oscillator slider is all the way up for pitch bend. So that's nice. The filter is a different story. Basically brings the filter down to middle ground, and you can open it up or close it further. This is nice as well. You can do both at the same time. Gives you that nice screaming. And you can add even more scream to it by kicking up the resonance. So because of the way that the resonance tends to minimalize the original signal, it didn't get so screamy. But I'm going to bring both of those down. I just kind of wanted to let you know that they were there. In addition, the second oscillator can change its shape. And there we get some nice phasing. Sound design. The noise generator on this is quite nice too. You can just hear it, it's very soft. I'll check this out. Classic. Cut that out with the frequency. So there's a lot of range you can have even just with the noise. And all of those waveforms are running through the voltage-controlled attenuator. Again, there's no way to control independently their attack, decay, sustain, and release. They act as one. So, that is the basics of the SH2. Now, something I'd like to show you as a little bonus. Check this out. We've got this delay pedal here. And let's turn the delay. So this is what this delay pedal sounds like. It's the Tonal Recall by Chase Bliss. Quite a nice analog bucket brigade delay. And that's what it sounds like. Characteristic of the tonal recall. Really characteristic of bucket brigades, but specifically the tonal recall has a very sweepy attack of its repeats. So, I love a good analog synth through an analog delay pedal. But what's very interesting, if you've got any pedals that use a expression pedal to expand their capabilities. Some can use the expression pedal to control different aspects of what they're doing with their effects. You know, the decay time, delay time, the loudness in the mix, things like that. The Chase Bliss pedals are renowned for their... Hey, what's up, Barry? Thanks for saying hi. Thanks for stopping by. So, you know, tonight's been a lot of talking about synths and stuff, and I don't think I'm going to stop until I'm done explaining this aspect of the synthesizer world. So, I'd like to bring this pedal into focus here. So, this is the Tonal Recall by Chase Bliss, and it takes in expression pedal signal and can route it to any of the variables on the face: mix, decay, regeneration, etc. So what's beautiful is any pedal you have that takes in an expression pedal signal also will work with the synthesizer's control voltage, because that's all that an expression pedal is. It's sending a varying voltage depending on how far you're pressing the pedal, and then the effect pedal takes that in and uses that to modulate any one of the variables. So if you've got a pedal laying around and you're working with synthesizers, modular synths, or you're looking for a pedal, keep that in mind. If it takes in an expression pedal, you can modulate it with control voltage. Here I will go ahead and say the regeneration, which is the amount of repeats that there are, is going to go up the more control voltage, the more voltage is sent to it. So the low notes are going to have a little bit of regeneration, and the high notes are going to have a lot of regeneration. It's basically just got 3 repeats. Maybe 4. Up here, more. Now, it's a little counterintuitive when you're working with a delay pedal, because it's increasing the regeneration number as I move up the scale, but high-pitched notes have less low frequencies for the delay to grab onto. The delay likes those mid-range and low-range frequencies. But something more interesting we can do, at least in terms of sound design, is use the keyboard position, use that control voltage to play with the time instead of the regeneration. So that sounds like this. You're going to hear some pitch shifting because an analog delay, when its time is reduced or increased, it also changes the pitch of what's being repeated. So you can hear it moving quickly up or quickly down. So you can toy with all that stuff just by sending control voltage right into the expression pedal jack. It's quite nice. You can also see by this red light that the time is changing. So that's the higher pitch the note is, the quicker those decays are going to happen. Or the quicker the repeats are going to happen. When you get up into the really high notes, you're so quick with the repeats that it almost just sounds like part of the initial sound. So that's cool. If you didn't have that control, what would you do something like this? You're getting a lot of pitch bend between each note. Now, let me be honest. It's getting quite hot in here with my AC off. I'm actually getting a little bit too hot. And we're looking at what? 51 minutes in. So, what I'll do at this last point is show you something that I've been working on that I'm really happy about. But I'll move it to... Yeah. I'll be moving to the webcam. So, not sure how long we're going to be using the SH1 in the ZnZerna Music Hour, but I think we're going to use it a little bit in the next bit of time. I think we're going to see it actually being a part of some of the production and stuff like that. Something that's already kind of an awesome part of this production is these physical objects. And I have made a new and very beautiful, in my opinion, self-ringing bell. If you recall, the first one was the Apple bell, which actually here, let me go and get that for you. So this original iteration of the self-ringing bell, oh yeah, no AC is crazy. It's hot up in here, but it's okay. As soon as we're done here, I'm gonna turn the AC back on and live like a king. So this is the original self-ringing bell. Oh, actually, let me hook it up. You should be able to hear it. Let's see. So, for those that don't know, my self-ringing objects and my objects basically take control voltage, same thing that those synths use, but actually in the form of gates, which instead of sending, maybe an attack signal, like a signal that could be a sloped signal or like any kind of shaped signal, it just sends a single pulse of 5 volts, bang. And I use another machine to take that 5 volts and turn it into 12 volts, which runs solenoids, which I'll show you what a solenoid is in a minute. But first, I just want to show you this. Is the self-ringing Apple bell. So I can push a button on my MPC and have it ring out. Okay, so that's the self-ringing Apple bell, but you see this wire here is quite obvious. You can sort of camouflage it in some foliage if you use plants like we did in Greensboro, but it still is somewhat conspicuous. Sure, you could probably make it less conspicuous using smaller wires. The tape was a measure to actually camouflage it in with the plants when we worked in Greensboro. So this one that I've put in work on recently is much cooler looking, in my humble opinion. I think you'll agree. So this is the new self-ringing bell. It's made from a Tibetan temple bell, which that's just what they call it. It's, you know, made in Tibet, but from a mold. I don't think it ever existed in a temple, but it's sort of made for temples. But I'm using it in my temple of music, and we can plug it in here at the base. And it doesn't even look like it's got any wires coming from it at all. So that's the new self-ringing bell. And we can use those in our performances by, you know, sequencing those sounds. It's giving me a little bit of troubleshooting necessary, although I'm not sure why. It may be the solenoid that I use is a little finicky. Okay. So it also has to do with the sound that I'm sending it, or the signal that I'm sending it. But yeah, that's the boy. I'm really excited about it. A little bit about solenoids. So a little bit other exciting news with solenoids is, let's see if we can actually do this. Can we pull this up? 1 second. Actually, let me see what we got. Actually, I don't think I can. Wait. No. 1 second. No, I don't think we can find it. But I'll show it to you anyways. You'll be able to get the picture. So, inside of this bell is a small solenoid. As you can see there, that does the hitting. And that kind of small solenoid, 12 volts, like 0.3 newtons when it hits. It's got a very short stroke, but it makes it very responsive, lightweight and very responsive. On my symbols and my signs that I've been using since Greensboro, I've got a larger solenoid here, 12 volts, I think 0.5 amps, and like 1 newton or 1.5 newtons of force when it hits, ideally. Obviously, it varies. And then we got this bad boy I just got in the mail. Yeah, it's a real big boy. So this is our medium-sized solenoid, which used to be the large solenoid, but now this is the large solenoid. So we've got 12 volts, 1.5 amps, and something like, I think, 25 or 30 newtons. So it's like theoretically 30 times as strong as this. Not sure if you haven't been following, I've been having a little bit of an issue with the sound level at the Burnham shows. In Greensboro, we really had a great balance of sound. I think being able to work for a couple of days to get that balance just right was very beneficial. But in these settings where I've got to set up quickly and do a set, etc., we've been having some issues with the object sound competing with the PA sound and not being able to be heard over the PA. And I am hoping, one of the things that we're trying to remedy that is, number one, we're going to be hopefully taking some what are called button mics, taking a button mic for each object and hooking it into the mixer so we can actually amplify or even run effects on the objects. the push to that. It wasn't Ariel's idea, but she kind of pushed for it or brought to mind how cool that could be. So we're gonna be miking up the objects for the shows, and we're also going to be using these larger solenoids, hopefully to the effect of getting the volume levels right in relationship to the PA. So really exciting stuff. New objects, new potential solenoids, which I'm sure I'll be talking about whenever I get whatever hooked up to this monster. And that's about it. I'd like to say thank you for tuning in to all of y'all and listening to me talk about the SH2. I'm excited about synthesis in general and always like to talk about it. I hope that some of this stuff might have informed or inspired you to pick up a synthesizer or even start to work with solenoids, which is a hell of a lot of fun. And hell yeah, footbags. It is. And it's and like I didn't get into this tonight because I got caught up in explaining exactly what it was and a little bit about synthesis in general. But when you get it, we can get it easily going with the arpeggiator that I have up here, the make noise module that arpeggiates. So we can really get some very cool sounds from this thing. And hopefully not next week, but maybe the week after, I'll be including it in the compositions. I think next week's going to be all about Nothing Beats a Try. I might end up interviewing Aaron, maybe running a new video that we've got in the works. Still, that's the thing on the plate. If you're looking to see what I've been up to lately, Nothing Beats a Try by MC. And that's on the Cold Rhymes Bandcamp. Whoops. So, never mind that. Sorry. Oh, it's auto spacing my stuff. Thank you. I'm like, I know I didn't put a space in there. Yeah, coldrhymes.bandcamp.com. Footbags, you're up there too. You can find some of my records. We've got your record, which is really great. Actually, that record was what made me be like, we should probably do a collab project, which I'm still thinking about. Just been mad, like busy with insane amounts of stuff. It's crazy. It's crazy when you take on the creative aspect of things. But Music for Dark Basements is a really good record. It had me fucking amped to rap. So you can find that there. You can find my records there. And you can find Nothing Beats a Try, which is that new on Cold Rhymes Records. Okay, so plugs aside. Oh, nice. Cool. That is another way to get to it. Thank you, Barry. Cool. And actually more direct. So, yeah, that's it. That's what I've been up to. Check out Nothing Beats a Try. And I'll see you next week. Probably have an interview with Aaron. Might have a little remix of something from there. I don't know. We'll see. And until then, it's been cool talking to you. And I'd like to thank all of my dust cats. Barry, thank you so much. The tapes are just getting printed now. Yeah, August 1st. And August 4th, Monstercade in Winston-Salem is going to be madness. That's the album release. MC and I is going to be doing a set. I'm going to be doing the Rap Round Robin with guys like OG Spliff and other folks. I've been so massively busy, I haven't been able to check things out on that tip and who all is playing that Rap Round Robin. But it's bound to be excellent folks because Aaron is one of the best curators of round robins that I know. He usually puts people on that are really, really excellent. So, Monstercade, August 4th. That's what's happening. August 1st is the release, Nothing Beats a Try. This is what we've been working on. And I'd like to say thanks to all my Dust Cats. Barry, for holding me down in the chat. And, oh, thanks. Yeah, definitely going to have fun. We're actually going to be talking to Aaron and hanging out a little bit. It's going to be nice. But yeah, thanks, Barry, for always holding me down in these chats. And tapes are on their way, or will be this week. And shirts for those of you who've got them, who've purchased them. And yeah, that's about it. I want to say thanks to all my Dust Cats. I'm going to run that right now. Huge thank yous to all my Digicats. Everybody who's listening to the new tape in 15-minute segments, dust off your Walkman, because it's happening. Kenny Creech, Erica P., Brittany Pittman, Melissa Schick, and Gerard Stoltz, y'all are all getting tapes. They're coming to you. Scarlett Herrera also. All my Dusty Cats are getting tapes. Sam Seeger, I'll see you next weekend. We're going to do some work in this cabin. It's going to be great. Walgoo, shout-outs, what's up? Austin Cat, Quinn Cat, Wayne Anderson, thank you. Viz, I don't know if you can hear me stomping, but that's me. Jen Dudley, Eric Akers, thank you so much to all of you for your continued support of the ZnZerna Music Hour and the various Burnham projects. We have two vital cats, should I say. One of the cats is a dog. Dog fuck, I love you. I'm glad that you're back from your travels, and I'll see you later in the week. We're going to kick it, maybe talk about some visual aspects of performance. Got something in store for the city of Richmond. Barry, last, not least, absolutely essential to the operation. Nothing is true and everything is permitted. We're going in on this chaos. Thank you, Royal Blue, my man, Barry Cat. Till next weekend, or till next Tuesday, I will see you then. And actually, next week, in addition to the Aaron stuff, I might end up talking to you a little bit about the Walgoo project. But that's something that we'll just keep on the low until then. Walgoo. W-A-L-G-U. Check it out if you get a chance. Okay. All right. Good night. I hope y'all have a good week and the rest of the time till I see you again. I'll see you then.